Welcome into the Trade with the Best podcast. Craig Hoffman,
Chris Gorres,
and we are here with Joel Sanders, the longtime friend of the pod. We've recorded at EXOS. Tell us a little bit about where we are, by the way, Joel. This place is incredible.
Well, if I told you and anyone else, then I'd have to kill you.
Ooh, but, don't tell us. Don't tell us.
Let's just call it
undisclosed.
Let's call it
an undisclosed location
the
that
ultimate,
we're calling.
Yeah, I would call it the ultimate man cave.
Okay, I'm good with that.
It really is. It really is a pretty cool spot. You've got workout equipment. You've got a cool espresso machine. You've got this amazing table and couches. I mean, yeah, I would say this is the ultimate man cave.
What else do you need?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And we brought the podcast equipment, so here we are. And since we didn't say any more than that, we're not dead.
That's right. We're not dead. We did not disclose the location.
Big plus. So what we're going to do today is we're here in Pheonix still. This is the last thing we're doing before we leave, which is funny because so much of what we've done while we're here won't come out for another couple weeks. We can't tell anybody about that on this podcast, or otherwise. Right. Why are so many people trying to kill us? What have we done?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Well, maybe we're onto something. We're doing so much secretive stuff, man.
It's just dangerous.
We're
living dangerously.
Yeah.
But this is chronologically in real time, the last thing we're doing before we leave. And Joel's been doing a great series, Programming for Noobs. And so you've had so much great interaction on social media. We thought it'd be kind of cool to flush out some of these thoughts in a podcast format, the old long form compared to the social media short form.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do we just dive right in with step one, or why did you want to do this in the first place before we even get to step one? Like why were you like, this is something I want to post about?
Yeah. So the noob part of the equation actually for new coaches and trainers.
Nice. I
so
like it.
the reason at EXOS, every internship, halfway through the internship, we ask the interns to send us one thing you want to work on second half of the internship and learn more about.
Yeah.
What do you think the number one request we get time and time again is? I want to learn more about how to write programs. Every time. And so, after banging my head against the wall for years of like, hey, let's try this way to teach you how to program, and let's try this style. Let's have you write programs and then we'll look over them. And, let's sit down on the whiteboard and go through them. I'm like, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm breaking this down. I'm going to go in the lab. And so there is like even a long-ish form on strengthcoach.com. So I wrote an article.
Check it out, guys. Strengthcoach.com.
Yeah. So strengthcoach.com, it's on there free. So it's not gated. So that's a free. So I wrote the article.
So you've already got notes, but we want you to keep listening to the podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still don't tell all, right?
Okay.
So in the article, I mean, you got to keep some secrets for your friends.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that was why I wrote the article, which turned into a Twitter thread going semi-viral, and really one of the most popular things I've posted in years.
So beyond just an intern at EXOS, who would you consider to be a noob, right? Like a new coach is somebody who just decided to be a trainer, has been a trainer for a year. Like what would you define as a noob?
I think if you don't feel confident in writing training programs, if you feel like every new client or athlete that comes walk through the door and you're like, oh boy, where do I go with them?
Right.
Where do I start? That's who I wrote this for. Is here's a system that you can use.
Yes.
It's going to save you some time. It's going to keep your programs a little more streamlined, so you don't feel like you're starting from scratch every time someone new walks in.
Yeah.
I think that's a great question too, and a great thing to think about is you've got the people who just get started that like they barely know enough to program because they've got 6 spots to fill and no 7 exercises. So like there's that problem. But even as you get a year in and you pick up a lot of new stuff, now you've got a lot of tools and not really a clue where to put them at that stage. So like you're still new, but it's a different challenge of being new. So I think that organization that we're going to get into is really helpful, and to think about it in that way of like anyone who's struggling to put the pieces together as opposed to someone like, and I'm the least experienced one at the table, and I've been doing this for 6 years, and for I would say the better half of them at this point, or more than half of them at this point, like I felt pretty comfortable with any client walking in and being like, all right, this is your goal, this is your challenges, I can put together a program. But if you're not at that point yet, whether you know 7 exercises or 100 and just don't know what to do with them, like there's still a level of newness that the organization that we're going to talk about can help.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you said the magic word, systems, and we love
Right.
systems. We love principles. So
A systems-based approach. I put in 1,000 pieces of marketing material.
right.
So, step one. What's the number one thing you step in, you start in programming for noobs? The first thing you think about is?
Before you sit down with a pencil and paper is get to know your athlete or client. But I think you have to have a system behind getting to know them. And it's not because most noobs aren't quite skilled enough to sit down and have an open conversation that allows them to then leave the conversation and like, all right, I know exactly how I need to put this program together. So there's 4 questions that I ask in every new sit down and kind of a strategy session with a new athlete.
Gotcha.
Okay. Number 1, when's the last time you followed an intensive training program? Right? Something structured.
Right.
You know, was it a month ago, a year ago, or never?
Right.
Right. So that's number 1. And by the way, intensive, usually an intensive kind of strength and conditioning program.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Right. When's the last time you've lifted, you've done some strength and power work,
Right.
et cetera. So that's number 1.
Gotcha.
Number 2, any injuries
Right.
that are currently limiting you.
Right.
Right? I think that step's missed a lot. And I mean, there's nothing worse than starting a new training program. You're geared up, you're ready to get after it, and then day 2 they come in and something's tweaked.
Right.
Right.
That we didn't know about.
Right. I think that's so interesting too, that's something that like, of course it's something people forget, but it's also something that, and maybe I'm hyper aware of it because I work in a PT clinic. Like I train out of a place that people typically are in because they are rehabbing some sort of injury. But it's like the first thing I ask is like, all right, what, and in fact, it's on our intake form. Like, what injuries are you dealing with? Like, so if you're not asking that,
Right.
that's so critically important. But I mean, you have the intern knowledge and a lot of the new trainer knowledge that I guess that is something that people forget.
Yeah. Yeah. So number 3 is it's like basically asking what are your goals, but I think people can get a little confused with goals, or it's sometimes like heavy. And so I ask, what's one thing you want to focus on in your training?
I like that better. Yeah.
So I find you get answers that are a little bit more like A to B. Yeah, we'll talk about like long-term goals and strategies and why things matter to you. But like if I need to write a program for you right now, just what's one thing you want to focus on so I can make sure that is in the program.
Right.
Right. And I think too, like I think of some of my clients, it's like I've asked what are their goals, and they're like, I want to deadlift this much, I want to do a pull up, then I want to do 10 pull ups, and then I want to bench press this, and it's just like, oh God, that's a lot of stuff to work on. Can we pick one? And so I love that of just like, what's one thing you want to work on, and that way you don't give them the opportunity to overload, and they're gonna have to make the decision of what the most important thing is as they answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can include that one ingredient, that one's big. So, and by the way, people kind of stink at goals.
Yeah.
Like you're saying,
Yeah,
like they don't even know.
They don't know what they want.
Right. They're not exactly sure.
Right.
The things they're trying
A
to
lot of them got
accomplish.
their goals off the last meme that they found. Like bench press 500 pounds. Yeah, I want to bench press 500 pounds. Like whatever
Well,
the
why
last
do you wanna
meme
do
that
that?
they saw.
Because it's cool.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram, right? Like I want to box jump 60 inches. Okay.
Same. Actually, I don't. You don't need to box jump
Right.
60 inches.
You don't need to do
I
that.
wish I was capable of box jumping 60 inches, but that's a different goal.
Right.
All right, then you said there's 4 parts?
Yeah. Last one is, what are your workout likes or dislikes?
Mm-hmm.
If you tell me you hate running,
Yeah.
then all right, can I accomplish the goals that you want? Can I get a good training program designed for you without running?
I would like to make it known right now to all of my friends who are trainers listening that I sincerely dislike VersaClimber and crawling. So if there's anybody out there who I'm planning to come and visit soon that we want to work out, just know that I dislike VersaClimber and crawling.
Why don't you just say Natalie's name?
Well, okay, you just did it. I'm trying.
Why you got to throw shit?
We're in an
Go
undisclosed
direct.
location. We're in the Bat Cave right now, so I'm trying to keep things, a little bit anonymous. But yes, Natalie, I don't like VersaClimber and I don't like crawling. I still like you though, Natalie. So
Natalie was very helpful this week. Thank you, Natalie, for your service.
yeah,
I had a great time working out. Now we know why Chris only joined us one of the 2 days and worked out with a different group on this morning.
But going back to Joel, I think that is really important, right? Like to know, yeah, I joke around, I dislike it, but I'll get through it. But for the person who's coming into your gym, if they really like something, that's going to help you create buy-in versus if they really dislike something and you're making them do a lot of it. Now they're asking the question, is this the right trainer for me, right? So, yeah, I think that's an important question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, number one thing, and I'm generalizing, that most females, when I start to work with them, say is, I don't like to lift weights.
Right.
And in particular, they see the barbell, and they get intimidated.
Yeah.
So if I have someone come in and says, I don't like to use barbells, okay. Well, let's, it's kettlebell, dumbbell, TRX time, cable time. And so if I can get buy-in and they see results using those pieces of equipment where they don't feel like they're lifting heavy weights 100%. And it doesn't leave, calluses on their hands, which, by the way, ladies, calluses are sexy. Okay, men find calluses sexy. Okay, is if I can get buy-in there, then I can start to weave in maybe a barbell with like a landmine.
Every once in a while, exactly.
Yeah, but it's...
Don't worry, we're not going to lift it. Because I think it's the intimidation factor as much as anything.
Well, it's the weightlifting. I don't like lifting weights. Okay, but but they don't realize that a kettlebell is still a weight. A resistance band is still a form of resistance that we're moving, right? So
this brings up an interesting.
You got to play with it a little bit.
This brings up kind of an interesting side topic debate though of how much convincing do you, I mean, obviously, look, we could all train someone really successfully while never touching a barbell, right?
Yeah.
But as someone starts to like the gym, or depending on their personality, some people like to be challenged or feel challenged, right? Like, oh, you don't like that? I guarantee you I could get you to like it. Like, I could find something that
I don't
you
think
like
that you would say that. You just, we talked about it before. You just Trojan horse it. Like, put it in the Trojan horse, and then all of a sudden they like it, and then it's like, they're the ones, hey, like, I think I want to try deadlifts or whatever.
Right. And so how much, do you try to set it up to eventually you're going to include some of that stuff, or you just like, you know what, that person's never going to touch a barbell. And that's fine. Because we could be successful that way, but the more tools you have available in your toolbox, the better.
Never say never on touching a barbell. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you just don't start there. Yeah, just like you said, I'm going to hide the broccoli in the mac and cheese for my kids. So that's where we start.
That's a good one.
By the way, we did find someone finally to come on the podcast that has more children than you.
That's right. You beat
Congrats
me.
on number 5, sir.
All right.
Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah. 5 kids. They do hand out awards for that these days. You got a basketball team?
Yeah. Yeah, you said you were coaching you're coaching your girls the other night, or you were coaching because we were trying to find a time to do this. And I was like, that tracks because you have an entire team.
That's right.
Yeah. And 5 girls.
I know.
Yeah.
By the way.
You got it, man. You win.
Girl dad.
I'm not,
Ultimate girl dad over here.
Yeah. I'm not running that race with you. You got it.
Tapping out.
Yeah.
The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Super Coffee, or as the front page of their website right now says, coffee enhanced with optimism. Now, what makes it so super? 1, they have a wide variety of delicious flavors. 2, there's no sugar added. 3, it gives you sustained energy throughout the day because there's no sugar added. That means there's no crash, there's good caffeine in there because it's super high quality, premium organic coffee. Positive ingredients like MCTs from coconut oil, making it keto friendly, by the way, if that's your jam. And it's all available right now at drinksupercoffee.com for 25% off. Whether you go with the sweet and creamy coconut mocha, which, by the way, is also plant-based, or some of the originals like regular mocha or vanilla. All available right now, 25% off. using the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST. That's trainwiththebest at drinksupercoffee.com. Coffee enhanced with optimism. Sounds good to me.
All right, so that was step one, getting to know your clients, getting to know the people that you're working with the 4 questions that you mentioned, right? Like, when was the last time that you participated or really followed an intensive program? What are your injuries? What are your likes and dislikes? And what is the one thing that you want to focus on?
Yep.
Right. So that's step one. What's the next step from there? Once you have all that information, you've got great conversations, you have a good feel for who your client is, what they want, what they like, what they don't like. What's the next step?
Yeah. So now's when you actually sit down and you're going to design a training program. So here's one key that I think is getting lost more and more now is I think you go analog on your rough draft. So close your computer, get off your phone, and it is because you're a little less distracted.
Right.
But going analog, it allows you to not have to be so perfect. If you have a lot of people have an Excel template, or if you're using, software, where it takes more time usually to format things. So I think going analog, pencil and paper to start allows you, to relax a little bit and kind of, cut out the distractions.
Yeah. For me, I haven't used pencil and paper my whole life. Like, even when I was a kid, like, I just never took notes because, my brain, like, it's just everything is on. But
Supercomputer brain over here.
But it's like, you know what? It's almost the subconscious feeling of this is an unfinished product, so it doesn't have to be perfect, like you said, right? Mm-hmm. So you have this pencil and this paper. When I'm thinking of things in my mind, like, it's literally like a beautiful mind. Like, everything is moving around and everything is shifting. Like, does that work? No. Plug and play the next thing, right? So, like, in my mind, I'm actually still using a pencil and paper, and I'm just doing it in my mind. But I think approaching it with that rough draft mentality of, like, hey, this doesn't have to be the finished product. I think that's a great step. What about, like, how long do you program for? Like, do you program just for the first week, the first 3 weeks, the first 6 weeks?
A block of training. A block is, let's call it 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It could be 3 weeks or 6 weeks, but let's call a block 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that's what, like, when I'm talking about how to write and design a training program, let's call it a block of training or training phase. Yeah. So if I start, so you're at your desk, you got your sheet of paper, your analog, you've got your pencil. The first thing you need to decide is how many days a week is this person or athlete going to train? Mm-hmm. So a lot of it's based on their availability, but past that, when you're deciding how many times they're going to work out and train, 2 times a week is minimum, let's call it. Yeah. 3 times a week is kind of like almost the gold standard for a lot of people, adults, athletes, and the time that they have. Mm-hmm. And then 4 plus, like, that's a dedicated push. Yeah. That's someone who's either serious about their fitness and their goals, or you're off season with an athlete. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing you decide. How many days a week? Right. All right. That's actually, like, that's step one. That's now step that one. You have your pencil and paper.
Yeah. Right. So another factor into that, and this is something I deal with a lot because a lot of my clients also are group fitness people. So they take their solid core, their Orange Theory, their Cut 7. These are workouts and a couple of them local to DC, but whatever it is, they love their Pilates, their yoga, their HIIT class, their whatever it is. It's important to understand what those things are and where that fits in the program. Because, as you try to do your 2 times a week, or for me, sometimes I have a lot of clients that are 1 time a week because it's supplementing the other thing that they're doing. You got to understand as a trainer how to program around those things. Right. Because for them, that class where they have their community and stuff already built in, maybe they have some level of routine there, that's kind of their sport. Or if you're dealing with an athlete that has an actual sport and they have practice and those kinds of things, like, you might be dealing with some additional factors other than thinking like you kind of, I guess, would have to get out of the mentality of, and this is hard when you're new, you're like, no, my thing's the most important thing. Like strength training is the steak. Everything else is potatoes.
Right.
You have to understand when you're the potatoes too. And it's obviously ideal when you're not, but like, I think that's something that is real easy to be real self-important with when you have to understand, and this would go back to step one of like really understanding the goals, needs, wants, desires of the client that you're working with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that separates some of the great trainers and coaches from the good ones is they're taking all the ingredients of the recipe into account. You know, and they know how to take a pinch here
Absolutely.
and a little douse there versus just doing their thing.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, big
Exactly.
one.
You ever pull out the old Jacques Pepin? De Pails.
Yeah.
I was gonna sorbet, but
That's
Salt.
fair.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so step 2, we've got our pencil, we got our paper out. We're gonna talk about, or we're gonna think about how many times a week this person's coming in. We're gonna consider everything else that they have going on in their lives, whether it be work, practices, games, other workouts that they're going to. All right, what's step 3?
choose your training split. And what I mean by
Huge.
training split
Yes.
is how you organize movement patterns.
Yes.
And this step is where a lot of noobs, they fast forward and they already start thinking about exercises
Yes.
that they want to pick. And you know, I relate this to, like, do you guys, significant others, they ever ask you like to compare paint colors for your house? Like
Yes,
they're gonna,
of course.
right? And you, I mean, I don't know about you, but every time my wife comes with the 28 shades of
Right,
off-white,
green,
yeah, agree, is I look at it and like my eyes start crossing. I get a little woozy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what a lot of noobs, when they start thinking about exercises, they want to do all the things, and so we need to take a step back. Don't worry about exercises yet.
Yeah.
So pick your training split, and when you pick your training split, you're thinking movement patterns.
Right.
So here's what I mean by movement patterns: is your first bucket is upper body and lower body.
Right.
So is it upper body movement? Is it lower body movement?
Yep.
Now, I'm not talking about power-based movements,
Of course,
right?
right,
Hand
right.
cleans. Let's
Right.
just save that.
Just
for
the
a
actual
second.
movement, like what joints are moving.
Yeah. So upper body or lower body, and then are we pushing or pulling?
Right.
So you really have 4 main categories that you're organizing through the week. You have upper body pushing and pulling, lower body pushing and pulling.
Right.
Right. And it can get more complex than that, but I don't want to make it more complex.
Right.
So when you choose your split, are you going to do upper body one day and then lower body the next? Are you going to do all 4 of those movement patterns in one day? And so here's how I break it down: is the less times you're training per week.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3 times per week.
Yeah.
And or the less experienced you are,
Yes.
take like a high school athlete
Yep.
or middle school, they need more full body.
Yep.
Every
Absolutely.
day.
Total body.
Like it's like taking your vitamins every day.
Absolutely.
And the more you train, so if you're training 4 days a week,
Right.
or if you're more experienced and you need a more pinpoint dose,
Right.
that's where your split becomes more specific.
Yes.
So here's 3 splits to keep it simple. Full body split, meaning
No
every
split.
work, no split would
Yeah,
be right.
no split.
The
Yeah.
all split,
Yeah.
all four movements,
Right.
in every day. The second is a push-pull split, meaning you get one of the upper body patterns and one of the lower body patterns
Right.
each day. For instance, upper body pushing, and when I
like
say, I don't want to insult anybody, but when I say upper body pushing, I'm saying like push-ups, bench press,
Yeah.
and then lower body pulling, deadlifts, single leg deadlifts,
Right.
leg curls.
Yeah.
That's our medium split, because you get a little bit of upper body
Right.
and a little lower body each day.
Yep.
And then the most advanced and most dedicated dose is an upper lower split. So
Yeah.
all upper body one day, all lower body movement patterns the next day.
I would say that I don't see that very often anymore, just because I don't see clients that often. I don't see a lot of clients that are 4 times a week unless it's very specific, like combine prep or something like that.
Right.
And even then, it's like, do I have these people for long enough to actually take them through what I call a hypertrophy phase, where that would be really suitable, right? Like,
Right.
okay, if I'm focusing on hypertrophy, then yeah, upper lower split is probably going to be a little bit more appropriate.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I trained myself that way for a long time because that my main workout is in the gym, right? It's 4 days a week, you know, whatever. And I just got bored with it eventually. And I try to do a lot more full body now. And, you know, I'll mix up different things. Like I'll have a power day. I'll have more of a circuit day. So when you get more advanced, there's obviously ways to mix it up and still be in the gym 4 times a week. But it's not like the quote unquote only way to split it. But I think especially with newer trainers and newer clients, like keeping it simple is so important, because the other part of that is, like, we talk about newer clients get that no split, that all split, however you want to look at it. Like, they need to do the basic movement patterns so they become proficient in them. Like, it's practice in some ways. Like, they need to get a lot of squats in so they get good at squatting, and then they can build off of that. They can, you know, they understand what a bench press should feel like, so that way as they go up in weight and start to get closer to their actual potential and start to push that potential higher, like, they're proficient in the movements. So you don't need, you know, the twisting single leg, whatever. Like, you just need to squat, and then you need to do a push up, and then you need to do a row, and then you need to do some kind of basic hinge. And that's your workout. And once they're good at that, they can start mixing it up a lot more. And by the way, that's also going to be really effective because they've never had that kind of stimulus before.
And the other thing to think about too for the noob trainer is the practicality of it, right? Because life happens. So your clients aren't going to make every single workout. They're going to miss. So true. They're going to cancel. They're going to have a vacation. If you live in D.C. or in Maryland or Virginia, they're going to have snow days where they miss workouts. So if they come in for upper body on Monday and they missed Wednesday because somebody in their class tested positive for COVID, say they quarantine, like, so they only got upper body that week, right? So that's why I think that all body split is almost like a must for noobs. Like, you should start there. And until somebody proves to you that they're actually going to show up 3 or 4 times a week for a month, then we can start working out into different splits.
Okay, here's a next level concept that isn't talked about a lot. Is not only is it schedule, are you thinking about their life and their schedule?
Yeah.
If you're a young or novice athlete or adult, you don't know how to tap into your body.
1000%.
There's a concept called like the strength curve. I think it's the strength something.
Yeah.
And basically what it's saying is, you know, Chris, if you've been training and you've been training for decades at this point. If you do
hey, come on now. What,
he just called you old.
Because you started young, right? You started at like age 5.
Can we just back off the decades? Like,
you've been working
out
for a
while. Let's just say we've been training for a while.
It's been a while.
You know what you're doing.
Hey, no, we're good.
You're a black belt.
With a white belt mentality.
Yeah,
Vinny Scolo would be proud.
Okay.
So that if you go do a hard deadlift session, you know how to push closer to your max capacity.
Yeah.
Whereas like a young athlete who looks like Bambi on ice and their knees are buckling and every rep looks different is, I could do deadlift with them today and tomorrow and the next day.
Exactly right.
And it doesn't fatigue their central nervous system.
Right.
They probably don't even get sore half the time.
Right.
So the more experienced you are, the more time you've spent under the bar, the closer you know how to work to your physical capacity.
Yeah.
Which means you need to have more specific splits to give those movement patterns, those parts of your body, a little bit more rest.
Recovery, right. The concept of perceived maximum effort versus actual maximum effort, yes, there's a huge gap in that with novice athletes versus elite athletes or black belt athletes. They're going to be, that gap between perceived and actual is going to be very close, if not right on the dot.
The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Momentous and the brand new collagen shot designed with the active individual in mind. It is convenient. It's the first collagen gel ever made, one of a kind, and they have the patents that there's not going to be another one coming around anytime soon. But it's the first ever collagen gel that's both easy to use and great tasting. Not only is it mobile and user-friendly, it delivers results. Clinical evidence shows consuming collagen 30 to 60 minutes before training increases collagen synthesis in tendons and ligaments. So yeah, the classic collagen marketing is all about your hair, your nails, your skin, and like, that's great. But long-term health, longevity in your tendons and ligaments, that seems pretty important too. And when taken 1 hour before exercise, research has shown that the combination of collagen and vitamin C doubled the levels of amino terminal propeptide, a key indicator of collagen synthesis. So of course, what did Momentous do? Put the proper amount of vitamin C in this collagen shot. And if you don't believe us in Momentous, it's third-party tested. Each batch is NSF certified for sport. Sounds too good to be true? Go ahead, try it for yourselves. We dare you. Go to livemomentous.com, use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST25, and you'll get 25% off your first order. And if it's a subscription order, you'll get 15% off all the refills. That's TRAINWITHTHEBEST25 at livemomentous.com. Go add the collagen shot to your subscription right now. All right, next step.
So, all right, you got your piece of paper. We're going to work out, let's call it 3 days a week.
You got your splits.
You got your split. Mm-hmm. So on the top of each day, so day 1, day 2, day 3, you write the split. If it's all body, I'm writing upper push, upper pull, lower push, lower pull. So I've got this across my piece of paper. Mm-hmm. The next thing you need to do is map out the blueprint of the session. And when I say the blueprint, what I mean is, let's say you're building a house from the ground up.
Yep.
Do you pick out the paint? Let's stay on paint colors here. Right?
I just want to say for the record, by the way, no kids, apartment living. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
everything is all white where you live. But we have to.
I can
Me
theorize.
and Joel have to choose between sea breeze and aquamarine. Okay?
Yeah,
like
I do find myself looking at Chris when I'm like explaining this stuff.
Is it pearl? Is it white? Is it off-white?
Right.
So you're building a house from the ground up because you will one day.
One day.
You're getting married, so don't worry. Your time will come.
It's coming.
Okay?
It's coming.
Yeah, it's sneaking up quick. So think when building a new house, you want the blueprints of the house first.
Right.
You're not picking out the carpet and the hardwoods. I want to know the floor plan.
Yeah.
How many rooms, how many bathrooms, square footage.
Right.
So when you build out your workouts, when you're getting ready to design, you need to know and map out, okay, how is the session going to be organized?
Yes.
You're thinking about how long are the workouts?
Yes.
Do you have an hour or 30 minutes?
Yep.
Your gym flow. You know, like I can't pair, if I'm training a soccer team, I can't pair dumbbell RDLs and dumbbell bench press because we only got so many dumbbells.
Right.
But at the core of it, here's the easiest and I would say the really the best way to organize a training session if you're a new coach or trainer is at the top of your session, you want your appetizer.
Yes.
Your appetizer is power, plyos, and or speed work.
Yep.
Okay, so you're priming the system, you're revving the engine.
Yep.
That can be anything from medicine balls and hurdle jumps or hang cleans and power cleans, you name it.
Right.
Okay, so that's your appetizer. Next, entree.
Mm-hmm.
Entree are your primary movements,
Mm-hmm.
meat and potatoes. So the ones that we just talked about planning, upper and lower, pushing and pulling.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything left, if you got any time left, anything you want to tinker with, that's the dessert.
Right.
And the dessert can be arm work,
Yeah.
ab work, anything that's complementary to the session.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you write the blueprint out, you're taking all those things into account. But in general, if you have an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert, it's going to be a pretty solid training session.
So let's double click and go a little deeper on that, because especially on, again, going back to like the all body or the all split, no split, you know, something where you may have multiple compound movements within a singular training session. How do you approach the loading on those things? Because like, for instance, Rachel got hurt because she was working with a trainer who had her go, I think it was heavy squat, heavy deadlift, right back to back. And it's like, yeah, no shit, you got hurt. Like that's a terrible idea. But the idea, like, that doesn't mean you couldn't do heavy squat, or not necessarily heavy squat, heavy deadlift, but you could do squat and deadlift within the same workout.
Of course.
Right? It's just when you think about in the way that you've fleshed this out in the article and the tweets and the Instagrams and in your mind, the approach to loading and keeping this workout safe, if you're going to be doing multiple things at once, what's your advice on that to a new trainer?
Well, I think the number one thing I teach my interns as far as keeping people safe is protect the spine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know what she hurt in particular, and you don't have to say.
Yeah, it was,
I don't know if it was
deadlift
her
and then
back,
squat. Her low back got all out of whack.
Right. I mean, I could have taken a guess.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to protect the spine, and the number one strength movements that can flare people up. And listen, don't get me and say Joel said squats and deadlifts are bad for people's backs.
No,
but I mean,
right.
If you've been around long enough,
Yeah.
squats and deadlifts, especially with barbells, so bilateral movements.
Look, squats and deadlifts are the reason why we were joking about this earlier. Squats and deadlifts are the reason why you have to sign a waiver to join a gym. Because if you go to any hotel gym, they don't have a squat rack and just straight up deadlifts for you to do.
Right.
There's
Any hotel that we can afford.
There's no waiver to sign. But the reason why you have to sign a waiver is for squats and deadlifts. That's where you're going to hurt yourself. You're not going to hurt yourself doing front and side raises with the dumbbells at the hotel or dumbbell curls, right? So yes, there's a reason why you have to sign a waiver, right? And that's not because squats and deadlifts are bad for you, but if you're irresponsible with the loads and you're irresponsible with the volume, yeah, it can hurt somebody. It will hurt somebody.
So here's my rule of thumb, because we see this when we have our interns design, we'll give them, so it's their end of semester project, is we give them an athlete, a mock athlete, 22-year-old volleyball player, and we have them design a training program. One of the common core themes that we see is every workout has, they for some reason get stuck in squat, deadlift. Now, it may, when I say deadlift, I'm not necessarily talking about
any variation.
Right.
Yes.
I'm even talking about barbell RDLs.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but 1 week we'll have barbell back squats, barbell RDLs, barbell front squats, and trap bar deadlifts in a 4-day training plan.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question and come full circle is alternate between bilateral, so between squats and deadlifts, and then the next workout unilateral.
Right.
And I mean, that's an oversimplification, but I think your athletes and clients are going to feel a little bit better and stay, out of harm's way. If I squatted this session, next session, I'm going to do a lunge, a step up, a single leg squat,
Right.
etc.
Right.
So
That way you can offset them and just don't do back-to-back 5x5s. Like, that's hard pass.
Yeah, I mean, I like so even within the workouts themselves, right? Like, we'll only do one unilateral movement for a heavy load at 5x5, and then the supplementary move, the dessert or the appetizer, will be a bilateral move, right? So there are some exceptions to that, but for generally, and then the other game that I like to play is the game that I see on Instagram a lot, which is like the NBA All-Star game or the NBA Hall of Famer game, where you have to form a team and you have $15, right? And if you pick Michael Jordan, well, that's $5. If you pick LeBron James, that's $5. But if you pick like Jason Kidd, that's $1, right?
Right.
So you have to form this team of like, all right, I've got $15 to spend, but if I get LeBron and MJ, that's already $10 because there's a $5 player.
yeah, you got your budget.
Yeah, so you got your budget. And I've always said you have your
100%.
CNS budget, right? So like when you make this workout, you have to know if you're doing squats 5x5, that's a $5 exercise.
Right.
You don't get to do another one of those. You got to pick a $4 exercise next. Right. So you can't come out here and spend $25 in CNS bucks.
If $5 exercise is a trap bar deadlift 5x5, like you can still do a barbell bench press or a heavy, not like a medium heavy dumbbell bench press, but like you're looking at a 3x8, 3x10, something like that, where it's lower weight, a little bit more reps. And the CNS
it's
demand is not going to be nearly
amount
as high.
of reps. It's just like
less
rest in between.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so you just don't. You're never going to push that red line. in the same way as you will early in the workout, which also, by the way, you want to do it early. You don't want to do it late because you have more of your budget to spend. You don't ever want to spend your last dollar on I saved up this $5 for the end. It's like, well, actually, you only have $4.50 left. There's some interest that you missed, the taxes, and when they come calling, it's not going to be pretty.
So, okay, that's a perfect segue into the next steps. All right, sheet of paper, number of days per week, splits, session blueprint. We just talked about from high speed all the way down to our dessert. And then now I'm inserting my movements. And we went on a little bit bilateral versus unilateral. Now, when you think about your movements, the more full body or all body it is, the more primary. So there's 3 type of movements that I detail in the article: primary, secondary, and then auxiliary. You know, those are the cherry on top movements. Primary are higher weights or higher speeds, higher ranges of motion. So all the ones we just talked about, those are the ones a lot of people know. Secondary, those are the mediums. The dumbbell bench press,
RFE, lunges,
TRX rows.
Where do you put pull-ups?
Primary.
Yeah.
I'll say it depends on the athlete. Like for some people, pull-ups hellacious. For some people, it's not that bad.
Well, okay. If they could do a lot of pull-ups, but I'm not going to do pull-ups I usually don't do them for high reps. And I don't know a ton of people that generally bang out more than 8 to 10 pull-ups, quality pull-ups. So I'm including, for upper body pulls, primary movements are rows and pull-ups. And they can be pull-downs as well because you can load pull-downs. Right. And don't hate on me for including pull-downs for the caveman training zealots who only do pull-ups. But upper body push, bench press, and some type of overhead press. Like kettlebell push press,
incline dumbbell, whatever, landmine, whatever.
Lower body push, squatting, and split squats. So to me, that's can be rear foot elevated split squats, you name it. And then lower body pulling primary movements are deadlift and deadlift variations, RDLs, and then single leg deadlifts. Right, and then bump down to secondary, and you've got some variations of all of those that we just mentioned. And then auxiliary are for like upper body pushing, shoulder raises. You can do push-up variations, chest flies. And you kind of get the picture there. So here's the simplest way for a noob coach to think about programming. So this would be the next step. You select your movements or you select your exercises. Sets and reps. If it's a primary movement, more sets, less reps. Now you're gonna ask me like, well, what does that mean? It's different for everybody, but just in general, more sets, less reps. Secondary movements, it's in the middle, like moderate sets, moderate reps, and then auxiliary, like that's where we're pumping up. It's hypertrophy, like break it down. Higher reps, usually fewer sets. That's like the simplest way I can do sets
and touch on
reps.
the rest period too. I want you to say it because the rest period matters too, right? So when we're doing when we're doing more sets, less reps, how much rest is in between those sets?
You need enough rest to be competent in the next set.
That's a good way to put it. Enough rest. But enough rest to be competent, right? I think that's a good way to put it.
And then as you move to secondary and auxiliary work, you want to go, I look for actually a concept called incomplete rest. Now, incomplete rest means while your heart rate hasn't come all the way back down, you're not just scrolling through Instagram between sets, but you got enough rest to repeat the effort. You're not, if I did 10 reps on TRX push-ups, and then I come back around, I'm only able to do 8 reps the next set, I didn't take enough rest. So it's finding a sweet spot, which is usually, making a generalization, is usually 45 to like 75 seconds for the secondary and auxiliary. Around a minute and a half maybe. usually the primary stuff, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
That's what
90 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on, especially once you get into set 4, set 5 of that primary movement, right?
And it's also a great coaching opportunity. You know, we talked earlier about that perceived exertion versus actual exertion, right? Yeah. If you have someone who does their 5 reps and it's like ready to go again, you're like, oh, hold on. If you're ready to go already, then we need to add more weight to that bar, right? That's an opportunity to have them understand how far they are away from their own potential. Like, hey, when you get done with that set, I want you to need a minute. Yeah. I want you to need 2 minutes. So we're going to push. Obviously, you have to be able to do that in the realm of safety, right? You don't want to push too far, but chances are, like, they think they're at a 9, they're actually at a 4. So if you put them at a 6, they're going to feel way different than they did when they were lifting that 4.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of novice athletes or folks in the gym, they don't know what hard is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so here's a strategy you can use is with upper body, I find especially.
Yeah.
Dumbbell rows or dumbbell bench press is, let's say you have them, they grab their weights and they're supposed to do 8 reps. And this isn't day one. This, we've been training with you for a few weeks or
right.
Is they get down and they're doing 8 reps on dumbbell bench and you're kind of maybe spotting them. Tell them to keep going.
Yep. I love doing that.
And they kind of look at you and they do a few more reps. And I was like, yo, go ahead, keep going.
And
they're supposed to do 8 reps, and sometimes they'll do like 19.
Right.
They get up, and I was like, all right, so you had 8 reps, you did 19.
Right.
So what do you think? Right? What do you think about next set?
I think we can go up, coach.
Yeah. So that's kind of a sneaky strategy that you're not even telling them. They just showed themselves.
Yeah.
I love that. I do that all the time. Another one. One more. Come on. You're not slowing down. You got it.
Yeah.
The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Jawku. Jawku. It's all you need for world-class timing. It works just like a laser system at about 1/10 of the price for the same exact quality. You want precision down to 100th of a second? You want consistency that you just can't get hand timing? Well, the Jawku Speed is all you need. I used it for the first time the other day and was blown away at how easy it was to use. I timed myself in some 40s, some 60s. Plan to take it out to the track and do a couple hundreds, maybe even a couple 200s this weekend. It's going to be beautiful in DC, 75 degrees. You can find me on the track. But I'm just a guy out here trying to run around and stay in shape. What about a world-class athlete? A guy who's running some pretty high-level meets like the Olympics and the World Championships. Yeah, Nick Simmons was pretty blown away with it too. And if you don't believe us, well, it's on video. You can go to Nick's YouTube channel and check out the second video in our series with Nick and Zoe. And to do the time trials, we used the Jawku. That's right. Nick was like, yes, that's the timing device I would like to use. I would like to use a Jawku and get my 100-meter time down to the 100th of a second. And so we did. And if you want to buy your own, or a muscle blaster, or a speed ladder, or a speed chute, the kind of things that you need to round out your speed training, all you got to do is go to jawku.com. That's jawku.com/discount/TWTB. You can get that all at 20% off. Again, that's jawku.com/discount/TWTB.
There was another strategy that you had that I taught you about very, very early on. And this may not be the programming for noobs, but I think this would be useful for noobs. You talked about when you have a client. So now we're getting into our secondary and definitely auxiliary moves where the rest periods are, you said, somewhere between 45 to a minute, 30 to a minute, right? Yep. You said that the more novice of an athlete that you have, the more movements that you put into the block so that they have more time to get around into the next movement, right? So let's say if I did push-ups, kettlebell swings, some sort of plank, some sort of row, there's 4 movements. So by the time I get back to push-ups, I would have had more time to recover. Whereas if you have a little bit more of an advanced athlete, you put less movements into the block so that there's less time to rest in between the next time you get up to push-ups. Is that something that you still follow, or like explain that a little bit? Because I thought that was really interesting when you said that.
Yeah, I think in general, a lot of coaches think more exercises equals harder in a circuit.
Yeah.
But physiology, when programmed correctly, it actually doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So if I have a I have 4 movements in a circuit, I've got more rest before I get back to that first movement.
Right.
Whereas if I grab you a heavy set of dumbbells, for you probably hundos, right? If I grab you,
sure.
At least to warm up with.
Yeah, that's right. If I grab hundreds for you, Chris, and tell you, and like, all right, dumbbell bench, set of 5, and then like, okay, 2 minutes on the clock, repeat, as opposed to dumbbell bench and then dumbbell split squats and pull-ups and front plank. Now you had 5 minutes of those pressing muscles getting to, before they had to really work and expend,
right.
Again. So I think straight sets, which is just one movement.
Yeah.
Right. And I think my go-to is the superset.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
2 movements. That superset is just, because you're always looking for efficiency.
Yeah.
Your workout. So straight sets is not that efficient.
Yeah.
So supersets, and if you need a little bit more rest, like, all right, now I'm going to stick a mobility in between those two.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, supersets is like a sweet spot for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think the superset is also great from like a sales perspective, if you will. Like, you're trying to make sure that this client's having a good experience, right? So the idea of a single exercise rest, okay, well, unless you're the world's greatest conversationalist, there's a lot of just sitting there, right? They want to feel like they're getting their money's worth.
Right.
And so if you're like, would you rather have exercise, and say we're talking about a 2-minute block, you do the exercise, it takes 45 seconds. You can either have a minute and 15 rest or superset with something that takes another 45 seconds. Now you have a 30-second rest, right? They've now got more bang for their buck. It's not really affected the main exercise that we're doing. Right. You've had some kind of superset that's right. auxiliary or secondary, whatever, however, wherever you are in the given program, and they've got more action, I guess is a good way to phrase it.
Here's where I think the root of a lot of straight set programming is a lot of coaches and trainers trained they train at their college rec center or LA Fitness or a commercial gym where you have to like reserve your piece of equipment, right? You can't get up or someone else is taking it.
That's true.
And we were going off of Arnold's Encyclopedia Bodybuilding.
Right. Yeah, he right.
Okay? Shout out to Pumping Iron.
Shout out to Pumping Iron.
But
again, if you're not taking what Arnold was taking, then good luck getting those Arnold results. You know what I mean? So
it's all natural. But I think that's where that mindset came from is, all chest day. And when you do all chest day, how do you superset bench press and incline? But obviously you don't do that because they compromise each other. Right. But when you think about athletic performance, and we are now splitting our days by movement patterns, right. And you include more than one pattern in a day, which is so that's where we're talking about these type of programs. It allows you to superset movements. So more efficient, you get more work done.
Less dead time during a session.
And I just love that concept that you introduced, and I give you credit for that. Something that I learned from you a long time ago, which was, hey, more movement patterns in the superset is actually easier physiologically than less movement patterns because you're going to get more rest in between.
Makes sense.
So,
Makes sense. Real quick before we go, because I've heard the planes flying overhead at this top secret location. One of them is eventually going to be mine here soon, so I got to get going here. But you have a new product that you've been working on for like a year, and it's almost ready to come out.
That's right.
So this is not top secret anymore. You've given us the okay to tell people about it. What's coming to Amazon soon?
The Wolf Wedge.
The Wolf Wedge.
Yes.
Put like
Attack your goals.
The horn in there.
So I've always squatted with a heel lift. It feels better. You're able to get more mobility. You get lower in your squat, and it's actually easier on your lumbar spine because it helps you stay a little more upright. It's why Olympic lifters wear Olympic lifting shoes.
Right.
Well, save for you carrying around your Olympic lifting shoes like you're a bowler getting ready to go into the bowling alley. You can have a squat wedge either at your home if you train in your home gym. You can carry it into the gym with you or in a strength and conditioning facility. I created the Wolf Wedge because on the market, I've seen a lot. There are ones that are made of steel, so they're heavy. If you drop a kettlebell on it, they dent. And so I made mine out of cross-linked polyurethane, basically a really dense foam rubber mix. So it's light. It's less than a pound. So you can take it anywhere. You can easily store it. And it's light. And mine is long. It's long enough where a lot on the market are like these little, tight cyclist skier squats. This one's 26 inches. So if you're taller, if you like a wider stance, it allows for variation and not just kind of this one, style of squatting. And then lastly, I wanted it to be really accessible. Meaning, like, it's sold. You got Prime shipping. It's to you in a couple days. So I think the Wolf Wedge is going to meet a price point that is more agreeable to folks, but this thing's gonna feel good and like amplify your training.
I'm so excited for it. We'll definitely have one at Fit Collective. I'm sure you'll be having some at Onyx.
100%.
And so congratulations, man. That's really cool to be able to see a problem and be like, I think I am the one who can solve that. Is a pretty cool thing. And you've been doing that on an interpersonal basis with programming for, since you yourself were a noob back in whatever day that was.
Decades. You could say decades.
Okay. Decades ago. And now doing it with the product.
I'm there
cool.
too. I just don't want to admit it yet, Joel.
I've been saying a lot more recently, like, in my decade of doing media stuff, and I'm like, shit, that's accurate. I've been doing it for a decade. So I still don't have the S though. I still don't have the S. It's not decades yet.
It's almost an S for me. For being in this industry, there's almost an S. But I've been training since I was 11 years old.
That's what I was saying.
I mean,
Right. Just a couple decades ago. Joel, this was awesome, man. Thanks so much for making the time for us. Always good to see you. Glad we got to do this in person as opposed to being in a little Zoom windows. And hopefully we'll see you again here soon.
Absolutely.